2, 3, listen.
Hey everybody, this is AskDrGanz, the podcast. Stress, everybody's got it, everybody feels it, but what do you do with it? How can you get it handled so you can be the best? How can you handle it so you can do your best and most importantly, feel your best in all areas of your life? Well, that's what we're all about at AskDrGanz, the podcast. I'm your host, Bryn Griffiths, alongside registered psychologist Dr. Ganz Ference. This episode is entitled Joe and the Piece of Wood.
Yeah.
Okay, you got me. What is that?
Well, I figured, listen, it's we're into the new year, and around this time, a lot of people are looking to make changes, and I love the fact that change is in the air. It's new. It's a new start for a lot of people. The truth is, you can reset any time of year, but since everybody is thinking about this, we figured, why not talk about how to do this and what some of the nuts and bolts that goes into making this successful. But also, why would this be a good thing to do? Why should we think about how we've lived? Why should we think about how we want to live in the future? So, Joe and the Piece of Wood, and
I can hardly wait.
so I it's a story that kind of came to me. So imagine Joe. Joe was a guy who always wanted to be in business. He kind of dreamt of the corner office and with a nice view and the private bar maybe or whatever, right? And so, he starts off in the mailroom and he works his way up. He's very diligent. He works his way up and finally he gets tapped, right? It's like, you know what? Yeah, we would like you for our junior executive program. And he's so excited, right? He's finally going to get what he wants. And they say, well, part of the perks of this is we're doing an orientation, and we got a little harbor cruise we're going to go on, and we're going to all get together and get to meet everybody. The only issue is that Joe is terrified of drowning. He's scared of the water, and he's really thinking about, is this something I want to do? Well, obviously I want to get into the corner office. I want to get the promotion, but I'm scared to go on the boat, right? So he figures, okay, I'm going to do it anyway. So he goes on. They're out, an hour out, and, the worst thing that could happen happens. The boat starts to develop problems. It just starts to break up. It starts to sink. Our buddy's thrown into the water, so Joe is panicking. He doesn't know how to swim because he's got this fear of water. He doesn't know how he does it, but he sees this piece of wood go floating by, and he struggles. He doesn't know how, but he holds onto this chunk of the boat, and it keeps his head above water, and he's able to survive, right? So he's in the water for quite a while before the Coast Guard comes along trying to rescue everybody. And what happens is the Coast Guard finally comes. They throw the life ring down. They try to pull him up, and they're having a hard time getting him up. And they look down. Joe's still holding on to the piece of wood. He's got the life ring in one arm and piece of wood in the other, and they figure, okay, well, the guy's in shock, right? This piece of wood saved his life. He's not going to let go of it.
Right.
So they figure, okay, we'll pull him and the piece of wood up onto the boat. So Joe and the piece of wood are on the deck. They get to the shore. All the survivors are going out. They're hugging their family. Joe is lugging this piece of wood with him onto the shore. He's hugging his family with one arm. He goes home. This piece of wood stays with him. This piece of wood saved his life, so he doesn't want to let go of the piece of wood because if he didn't have it, he would have drowned. Well, after a while, his wife's not going to let him sleep in the bed with her and the piece of wood, so he's in the basement. He drags this thing to work. This thing starts to smell. People don't want him around, so he loses his corner office. He's actually back down in the basement in the mailroom. This piece of wood saved his life, but now it's hurting him. The issue is that we all have pieces of wood in our lives. We all have things that made sense and were even necessary and kept us alive even in certain parts of our lives. And because they were so important at those times, we have not let them go. But now those same things are detrimental to us. So this time of year, I thought it would be a great time to talk about that and figure out what are the pieces of wood in your life that you can let go of and have a different experience.
Is that a Ganz original?
That is a Ganz original.
Very nice. Somebody should illustrate that because that's a book. You had me right from the get-go. Okay, well, where do you want to start with this? Obviously, you do your best, and obviously that piece of wood served its purpose, but how do you abandon ship, so to speak?
Well, this is the thing, right? I mean, and that's the first thing. I think the first thing is not to beat yourself up. When you do identify that, okay, there's these things in our lives, and these things can be relationships, they can be ways of thinking, ways of seeing the world, they can be habits that we have. Many, if not all of the things that we have that are happening in our lives served some purpose at some point, and they were necessary and actually probably productive at some point. But there's an African proverb that says, on your journey, once you cross the river, abandon the canoe, right? The idea is if you're walking through the jungle or across a desert or through the woods, a canoe is going to slow you down, right? It's served its purpose. You've done what you needed to do with it. Move on now, and this is the thing. So first thing, don't beat yourself up. If you find that there's something you've been doing that's not working, just admit that and understand that. Cut yourself some slack and say, you know what? I honor this. I understand that this was something that I needed to do. It was necessary at this time, and now I'm going to do something different. So it's easier to start from a place of strength than start from feeling that you're stupid or broken or you made this huge mistake in your life.
There's something about being loyal to whatever it is, but at some point you gotta kind of cut the cord.
Well, this is it.
Or toss the piece of wood away.
That's right. You got to get rid of the piece of wood, or put the piece of wood into some special place if you need to, right? Or if it's a tool, put it in the toolbox. You can abandon that for now, but you can always pick it up later if you need to. But yeah, you don't have to be loyal to the whatever it is that saved your life at that point, right? Because again, the piece of wood saved Joe's life, but the piece of wood was also giving him like gangrene after a while because it was rotting, right? Yeah. So this is the same thing with relationships even. Like sometimes we've had relationships that were necessary and were healthy at some point in our lives, but now they're not as healthy anymore, or they're detrimental, or they're costing us time or money or happiness or whatever it is. And so it's okay to say, you know what? This relationship even has served its purpose. I'm not going to hurt you or be mean to somebody that I care about, but I can also see if this is not working that I need to cut ties and move on.
This is Ask Dr. Ganz, the podcast. We're talking about stress as we do on every podcast. You can check us out on Facebook. Just check out Ask Dr. Ganz. It's as simple as that. Starting small and celebrating all positive movement.
This is what you need to do anytime you're making a change. And like we were saying, you don't have to wait till the new year. Anytime you can always do that. But we do better when we celebrate the good versus when we beat ourselves up or we kind of focus on the negative, right? So success creates more success. And so when you're focusing on something that has worked, whatever it is, it can be just like the smallest thing. Okay, I didn't eat the whole cake. I ate like 90% of it. It's awesome, right? So, that's a small change, but it's a positive change, right? And so you want to celebrate that. The more you celebrate that, the more energy you have. I think it's several podcasts ago, I think we talked about the idea of getting, 3 things on a list done, right? If you got a list of 20 things and you get 3 things done, it's not so great. You feel like, well, all right, I got 15% done or whatever that is, right? My math's not great today, but I didn't get very many things done on my list. But if you have one thing on your list and you get that done, and then you feel energized, you do another thing, and you feel energized again, you do a third thing, you feel like Superman, right? You feel like a superhero. It's great. Well, in both scenarios, you only got 3 things done, right? So the idea is that how we see things has a huge effect on how we feel, but also how productive we are. So when you celebrate the little changes, that helps give you energy and fuel to make more little changes and eventually bigger changes. So this is what we want to do anytime we're trying to do a reset for the new year.
But isn't that easier said than done? Because I know a lot of people just tend to, and especially now with social media where people tend to go to the negative right away. There's an element of cynicism out there, and people go right there. They don't look at the positive in any story. They immediately think there's got to be more to this. I'm worried that society in general is kind of going that way, and that worries me.
I agree. It's not a healthy. It's not psychologically sound principles, right? But that people do that all the time. But this is why this type of, like, I always say this. I say it in my book. I say it when I do my speaking. What I'm saying is not for the weak of heart. This takes. It sounds simple and it sounds like common sense, and it is. But if it was really simple and common sense, a lot of people would do it, but they don't, right? And so it takes a deliberate, conscious effort to think about how you want to train your brain to think. It's so easy to go negative, so easy to be cynical, it's so easy to poke holes in stuff. There's a saying that says it's far easier to be a critic than it is to be a creator, right? And so you need to build in that habit of saying, okay, what do I really want to look at? Do I want to go down that negativity rabbit hole, or do I want to really see the good? Because it will benefit you far more for you to think about what you've done well versus all the stuff you don't have or you missed or you could have had or whatever, right? None of that stuff, none of that way of thinking helps you feel good. And if you don't feel good, you can't do good.
This is Ask Dr. Ganz, the podcast. We're talking about stress. You can check us out online at AskDrGanz.com. Okay, so back to the piece of wood. Here again, this is something that saved your life.
Right.
This is something that got you into that corner office. And how do you just kind of wean yourself off of it, so to speak?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's about really being proactive and strategic, right?
Okay.
We really have to think about how is this going to help me move forward, regardless of how it may have helped me in the past. We, as humans, we tend to prioritize familiarity and what we like and what we're familiar with versus what actually works.
Comfort zone?
Comfort zone,
okay.
Absolutely. So, it's a little bit of a human tendency, but then there's a lot of stuff that's human tendency that we can overcome. But we need to practice in order to overcome it, right? And so if we're aware of this, tendency, then we can think about, okay, you know what? Yes, that was something that happened and it did work, but does it work in the current situation? If I'm in the mall, do I need to hold on to this piece of wood just in case there might be a tsunami and, get me inland, right? Or is this piece of wood going to slow me down, right? But a more practical thing is this way of thinking, is this way of seeing the world, for example? Let's say you grow up in a really like a dysfunctional family and it was like physically and emotionally unsafe. It would make sense for you to be suspicious of people, to really pay attention to everybody's moods, to, be very guarded. And that probably would save your life or help you survive that really toxic environment. But if you're in a different situation, you're in a loving family, or you're in a school or a workplace that's very supportive, that same attitude that saved you when you were young is going to poison and limit your advancement in the company or your relationships with people, and it's going to keep you stuck. So it's about, okay, what does this actually work for me now, given the true circumstances I'm in right now?
This is Ask Dr. Ganz, the podcast. We're talking about stress. You can also take a look on Twitter, because here's the handle, at AskDrGanz. Well, then let's talk about, to try to get people thinking more positive, I'm a believer in the infectiousness of positivity.
Absolutely.
If I wake up and I'm a morning guy to begin with, so this energy level that I have with you is, it's not a fake thing for me. I just naturally wake up and I'm happy and I'm ready to go. And I find that the rest of the family feeds off of that. Mm-hmm. And they're not all morning people. So the question is, how do you take that spirit that you have and pass some of that along to people that maybe aren't naturally tuned into thinking positive as opposed to negatively?
So I would tweak that slightly.
Okay.
So instead of thinking about how you're going to pass it on, I would think about, how do I protect that?
Okay.
So instead of thinking that we're going to help people along with this, just make sure you're feeling it. Make sure you're okay with it. And what it will do is, like you said, it's infectious. It's natural. And so they'll be around it, and naturally they will probably pick up on some of that stuff. So the idea is you protect the flame, right? If you give the flame away too much, then it might get diminished, right? So you make sure you're feeling good, no matter whatever the energy is from the other people in the family or your group or whatever it is, right? But when you're doing that, they will naturally feel that, because negativity is also contagious, unfortunately. But, positivity feels better. It's more fun. And so if you can protect that and be that upbeat guy, whether it's in the morning or after, a 12-hour shift or whatever, people are going to want to be around that. And so to some extent, we can influence people to be more positive, but in another way, the people who are not positive are going to kind of run from that. And, they're going to understand that they can't bring you down. And so they're going to move on to something else. And it only allows room for more positive people to come into your life. And before you know, you have a whole positive group around you. And then, you guys are feeding off each other in a very positive way.
We've talked in the past about a reset button. Mm-hmm. Pretty easy to hit.
Yeah.
Reboot, anytime. Reset, however you want to word it.
Don't have to wait till January 1st. You can do it on January 7th, June 3rd, anytime at all that you want to do it, right? I heard this great quote. It said, no matter how far you've gone down the wrong road, you can always turn around, right?
Yeah.
You never have to keep going. Anytime you want to do that, you can just start again. So great time of year to hit the reset button on things and to kind of look at your life and take stock. But you can do it on a Tuesday morning in July, right? It doesn't really matter. You can always do that. So never be afraid to start over, because if it's going to work for you, just hit that reset button and start again, and know that you're okay for doing that.
Great story off the top, great quote off the back. And lots of great stuff in between. That's all the time that we have for today. And by the way, we always love feedback from you. So anytime you hear something you love, and maybe if you think we could have taken it down a little different road,
absolutely,
you're more than welcome to give us the feedback on that as well. And of course, our mission.
Yeah, we want to share this with as many people as possible, right? I want to make sure people get the little tweaks, the psychological information, the stuff that's going to help them feel better, do better, and be better. So if you like what you've heard, definitely share it with people that you know. It's also a great thing for you to do is to teach what you've learned, because that way it helps to cement it in your mind too, and help you to be able to access it for your own lives. So definitely share it and tell people all about it. Hey,
before we go, 2020 is here.
Yeah.
Speaking engagements, you want to get out and basically spread the message in as many places to as many people as possible.
Absolutely. I love public speaking. So hire me for any kind of gig that you got, and I'm more than happy to help bring this information to your group.
Also, don't forget to check out all the free resources, and especially that free giveaway, which is nice as well. If you haven't done so already, just go to AskDrGanz.com. Once again, the website is AskDrGanz.com. That's it for today. We'll see you next time.
See you later.
1, 2, 3, listen.